Glad you're here to hear me answer questions, your questions this week. I'm really excited to be here. We've had a really good week, and we are looking forward to making phone calls tomorrow night. So if you are interested in phone banking, please go on our socials, see where we are, so you can come and do some phone banking with us. We are calling people to make sure that we shore up votes and to make sure that we can get some more people in the door to volunteer and help us knock on doors. So let's jump into it, y'all. I have some questions and I'm also keeping up with what's going on live. So let's go over the questions first that I have. This one's from Dale. And he said, talk about the use of flock cameras to ticket individuals and violate our constitutional rights as individuals. And Dale is absolutely correct. I don't know if you've heard of the flock cameras, but there are 18 different cameras around Escambia County, and they are being billed as cameras to help cut down on crime, and they're supposed to be license plate readers, but they're not simple license plate readers. What they do is, um, they are connected to AI, and they record not only your license plate, but any identifying numbers on your car, including um, any uh, any bumper stickers that you may have, or anything. And this information is kept in a database. They say it's kept for 30 days. And this isn't just when you're speeding. This is literally anywhere you are out on the road in your car. And they say that the data goes away in 30 days. We're not sure about that. And it's an international database. So any law enforcement that has anything to do with Flock, which Flock is a brand name, but it's government spying on you, and it should be illegal. What we have to do is stand up to local government. Um, in particular, Escambia County took money from the opioid crisis, from the opioid settlement, and used 108 or $109,000 to sign this contract for 2 years. A lot of people made a stink about that, so they decided they were moving forward. They weren't going to spend that money, but they have already spent the 108 or nine $1,000 when Escambia County has a serious opioid crisis on its hands, and that's what that money should have been used for. But I will stay on top of flock cameras because yes, they are, um, in my opinion, illegal and a violation of your constitutional rights. Okay, the next one is whoa on TikTok. He said, "What do you think about gerrymandering?" Obviously, I don't like it, especially the one that has occurred in the southern states. So I'm sure everybody understands what he's saying by gerrymandered. But what has happened is the Louisiana versus Calais decision that came through the Supreme Court probably 2 or 3 months ago. I'm not entirely sure of the date. Um, Essentially gutted the Voting Rights Act. And so all the southern states moved immediately to gerrymander their congressional districts to dilute the Democratic vote. And in doing so, they diluted the black vote. And so um, now what we have to do is make sure that we have protections in place. My plan is and has always been ever since I ran against Matt Gaetz for the very first time I ran. Um, the first time I announced that I was running, somebody asked me what would be the first thing you would do when you walk in the door in DC, and I would pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, because what that does is makes the states stop before they can pass these laws. Currently, we are having to fight all of these things in court, but the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would mean that it would have to clear Congress before these laws could be passed or gerrymandering could be passed. So, as long as as long as people try to cheat at elections, we're going to have to fight against those evils. So, yeah, we're going to work against those. Kevin Jones on TikTok. What about getting money out of politics? This is big for me. I am a candidate and I hate to raise money. Unfortunately, it takes money to run a campaign because the more money you have, the more people you can touch and get in touch with. And as long as the other side has money, you have to have money. But the money in politics that he's talking about, that Kevin's talking about, probably has to do with Citizens United. The ruling about Citizens United, I believe, was in 1999. And essentially, what it did was said that that expenditures outside of your campaign, outside of a candidate's campaign, or outside of the party, you can spend as much money as you want. So you've seen all the commercials on TV where they go, paid for by such and such a PAC. While an individual can only donate $3,500 to a congressional campaign, that same person could donate 70 million to an outside PAC that's going to come in and do commercials for me or do commercials against my opponent. And so that takes away the level playing field. And you think about who the richest people in the world are right now, and that is Elon Musk, our first trillionaire to live in the United States. And in the same election, in the special election that I ran in last year, there was an election for judges in Wisconsin, and Elon Musk spent $30 million in a judge's election. Um, you can buy elections if you're a trillionaire. Um, those of us that are not only have our vote and only have our candidates. We need to take money out of politics. We need to end Citizens United without a doubt. Another thing we need to do is make sure that we make sure that congressional candidates can't stock trade. We need to make sure that candidates don't spend their entire time in office running for office. My suggestion would be that we have elections every 4 years and that congressional candidates only get 2 terms. Because if you're running every 2 years, you're continually raising money. And if you're continually raising money, then you're continually having to promise out things that the politicians shouldn't have to do. Um, Money in politics, and I don't take PAC money, I don't take super PAC money, and that's where all the big outside expenditures come from are from your super PACs. So when I was talking about that commercial and it says paid for by friends of Matt Gates or whatever the PAC name is, that money can exceed anything that you could possibly raise as a candidate. It needs to be taken out and ended. There's so many things that ethics wise that we need to do that we can do to bring politics back to a moral uh, playing field. Okay, so from Sand Dollar City and Glassworks on TikTok, are you pro or against data centers? I am against data centers in my district, and I'll tell you why. Data centers, they come in and they want to build this big structure and they say that they're going to come in and bring 200 jobs to build the data center. Well, that's over after it's built. And then after that, it takes about 30 people to maintain. There is a constant hum in the neighborhood within a 5 mile radius of these data centers. I cannot imagine living with that. Outside of that, the stress that it puts on the electrical grid and the electrical system makes all the prices go up, in some places by 3 times. It is also an environmental disaster when it comes to our water in this district. We know the bad things about data centers, and we also know that AI is going to happen. no matter what we want, but they should not be, these data centers should not be built in neighborhoods or around people where it's going to affect their lives. It shouldn't add cost to regular, everyday people to run these facilities because it takes so much energy and water to keep them cool and to keep them functioning, that they should not be anywhere near people. So I am against data centers in Florida's first congressional district. Okay, from Statty Unity on TikTok. Who are you running against? I do not have a primary. I'm the only Democrat in the election, but we do have one non-party person, and her name is hold on, Tyler Davis. And then we also have, I believe there are three Republicans. Jimmy Petronis is the incumbent. Him, and then there's John Frankman and Doug Chico. And just a side note, this time next week, I will be doing a debate live against John Frankman on what's called Conservative Circle. So look out for that. We will promote it. I think it's a great thing. I don't have another Democrat to debate, so I'm excited that somebody asked me to attend a debate with one of the Republicans, and I would like for more of them to show up so that we could have a true roundtable. I'm thrilled about doing that. Another question from Janice Davini on Facebook. How would you stop excessive spending while not taking programs away from children and seniors? Well, remember cutting down on fraud, waste, and abuse. I believe the terms fraud, waste, and abuse are probably what we need to concentrate on, but not blindly. And that's what Elon Musk and his crew of Doge thugs came in and ended so many programs and so many things that were necessary, um, that that we need to have. The thing that we can do, and so many people ask me about how we are going to pay for all the ideas and the things that I want to do. The first thing we have to do is redo the tax code. In that bill they call beautiful, our tax code was changed. So if you make less than $750,000 a year, you do not see any tax relief. But if you make more than that, you practically pay no taxes. We also need to make sure that we work on the corporate tax, because corporations pay less tax now than they did in the 1980s. So we have to make sure that our government is getting that money back so that we can fund programs like subsidies for the ACA, so that we can fund Medicaid, so that we can continue to fund Medicare. Um, we have to put the safeguards back in place that the administration has removed. The solicitor generals who make sure nothing illegal goes on have all been fired, and we need to make sure those come back, so that we can cut down on fraud, waste, and abuse. Let's see the next question. Okay, this is, I get this one a lot. Do you support Israel? And I think somebody else asked me about Israel as well. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It was Katie Mitchell. Um, will you vote to stop financial aid and military aid to Israel? Absolutely. This is what's happened. I support the Israeli people. I do not support Bibi Netanyahu. I do not support his war of choice. You know, he is part of the reason that we are in a war with Iran, because we're fighting his war now. And the reason Netanyahu wants to stay at war is because he's a war criminal. and cannot be held accountable while they're in the middle of war. So as soon as the war stops, he will be held accountable for his war crimes and what he has done to the Palestinian people. Um, I believe in a two-state solution, and I believe all civilians have should have the opportunity to live their lives. And I believe what happened and partly what we funded as Americans in the last administration is an abomination. So no, yes, I support the Israeli people. No, I do not support Benjamin Netanyahu and his wars. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, this one I'm not too sure about, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it's in the news. From Kristen Brown Sanders on Facebook. Can anything be done about to keep FPL from spraying toxins instead of trimming trees? It's not just from the helicopters in Milton. They're doing it in all the neighborhoods. Thanks. I've read some news articles on this, and what they're doing is instead of cutting trees back, they are spraying like herbicide on things to kill them instead of taking the time to trim trees back and whatnot. But what that has done with an overall spray is ended up killing a whole bunch of chickens and livestock and things in Milton that animals in Milton that seem to be unintentional, but it happened. So Don Gates is on the case. They did an investigation and they fined FPL 20 grand for for their part in this, and also fined the helicopter pilot, I believe. But the investigation is ongoing, so people must be held accountable. We all know the dangers of herbicides, and they can cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it needs to be investigated, and those that are doing it need to be held accountable. All right. Okay. From some other ones from Katie Mitchell. Will you vote to restore the agencies gutted by Doge? Absolutely. The first of which is being the Department of Education. They did not close the doors on the Department of Education, but they significantly downsized the Department of Education. The Department of Education is critical when it comes to our children and their education. I can't believe I have to say that out loud, but I do. Um, each state gets 10% of their funds from the federal government. Those funds are mostly for Title I schools in poor neighborhoods. So we have to restore that funding. It also can cover other things that are necessary. You know, if it were up to me, which I hope one day it will be, I hope the federal government can put more money into our public schools because I want our public schools to be something people are running to get their kids in the door to, not running away from to go to private schools or charter schools. I want people to run to our public schools. Both of my parents were public school educators, and I know the sacrifice that teachers make every day. It's necessary. One of the other programs that I think is that we have to bring back immediately is USAID. The reason we do USAID is because if other countries are stable, then we are safer. And since the cuts to USAID, millions, millions of people have fallen ill and died, mostly in Africa, because we haven't supplied medication, food, those sorts of things that are necessary to make that region stable. And when a region is unstable, then it turns into war. War turns back to us. We have to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to keep the world in stable. What are the other? We need some other programs. But let's see. Um, and then the Health and Human Services with the Head Start offices, we need to bring those back. And labor and housing. We are in a housing crisis right now, and Doge pretty much did away with the housing department. Let's see. I think I know I have one more. Let me find it. Oh, no, 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 no. Here. Will you vote to stop funds and dissolve ICE? Absolutely. ICE has turned into uh, this administration's personal police force, and they're masked and they are murdering Americans. They are poorly trained, if trained at all, with 50 to 60 days of training before they are given a weapon and put out on the streets to apprehend people. It wasn't a well thought out program. And what we did, the ICE budget was I think it's $10.1 billion, excuse me. And in the big bill they call beautiful, they gave ICE an additional $49.1 billion, which is more than the Marine Corps, which is more than the FBI, DEA, um, uh, all combined. So, in a budget reconciliation, we need to make sure we get that money back, and we need to shut down what they're doing now because there's immigration enforcement is necessary. Murdering Americans is a different animal. It's a different thing. They said they were going after the worst of the worst, and that is not what has happened. Um, thank the Lord that we have closed Alligator Alcatraz now, and that hopefully more people will be able to have their due process and their day in court because that's what has to happen. And if there was one thing that needs to be fixed with immigration right now, if someone was in the middle of attaining their green card or obtaining legal status, if they were arrested at a court hearing or going to visit with their lawyer, those people should be able to have their due process. They should be able those people were not breaking the law. Those people were doing it the right way. Um, I'll stop going on and on, but that is how I feel about ICE. Um, let's see. I'm trying to see if I have any more questions. I printed them out so I could read them easier. Oh, will you vote to codify a woman's reproductive rights? Absolutely. I believe it's nobody's decision to make except for you and your doctor and your family. You should have the freedom to have medical procedures, um, and abortion is one of those things. I will always trust a woman's right to choose. And the last question, I'm I'm excited to answer. It's one that I have to answer a lot, um, because of the way that most people frame. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here. What is your stand on the Second Amendment? Do you feel the gun, person, or current laws are the issue? And this is from Wade Merritt on Facebook. Wade, I want to be very clear. Um, I support the Second Amendment and your right to own and purchase a firearm. I believe that if you have that great right, it, with that comes responsibility. And I believe that you should have to pass a background check to own a firearm. And I don't get much pushback on background checks to own a firearm. I think that's necessary. I also believe that we need red flag laws. In Florida, we passed a red flag law that has worked when used. And this is the thing, y'all. You may not agree with me. I've been, for some reason, I've been called a gun grabber when I've never suggested that anybody's firearms be taken away unless they're a domestic abuser or a felon. Um, I believe in the right to own a firearm, but I do believe that that right doesn't come shouldn't come easily. We have 400 to 500 million guns in the United States, and that is more than people that we have in the United States. I believe that we have to get illegal guns off the streets. I believe that we need to make sure that we are not selling trafficking weapons to other countries like Mexico, which many gun dealers or gun manufacturers in the United States um, have done. I believe that there are safeguards and simple things that do not interfere with someone's right to legally own a firearm that we can do to quell gun violence. Because the people that say there's no such thing as gun violence are liars. We see it every day. We see 120 people die every day, and twice as many are shot and live with their injuries. I have spent the last 15 years meeting mothers who have lost their children to gun violence. And I assume that until it happens to you, that it's not a problem. But I want you to think about it, Wade. I am not against owning a gun. My father owned firearms and he made my sister and I shoot them. We knew where the guns were, but he also showed us how to work the gun, how the ammunition was stored away from the firearm. Um, and I believe that if you are a gun owner, then you should be responsible for those things. I believe that if your child gets a hold of a firearm and shoots somebody else, that you are responsible because ultimately it is your weapon. So I believe in the Second Amendment. I am not a gun grabber. I am a gun safety advocate. And I will always work hard to make sure that our children are safe, whether it's from firearms or cars or drugs. Our future is what matters. Y'all, I think that's all the questions I have, but let me check. I'm going to go online, see if there are any other questions that have been added since I've been talking. Um, and I don't think there are. Michaela, do you see any other questions? Okay. Well, looky there. And it is 6:58. Y'all, again, we need volunteers. We need people to come and help us knock on doors. We need people to come in and make phone calls with us, for us, because we can make change, but we need everybody's help. It's going to take all of us. If you would like a yard sign, come by our office. If you're not here during working hours, which are our office is open from 10 to 6 every day. We are frequently in and out of the office, but we keep yard signs on the front porch. So feel free to come by and grab some. And always, you can go to gay4congress.com and look up any of the information that you may wonder about me. We canvass on Saturday mornings from 10 to 12, and you can always donate to me at gay4congress.com also. And if you haven't seen my commercial about the incumbent, please take a look. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me and keep those questions coming. We're going to do this every 2 weeks now. Again, this time next week, I will have a debate with one of the Republicans. So stay tuned for those instructions.